Entrepreneurs and business owners are not the same thing. And we're going to be talking with Tony DeSilvestro on the show today about this, amongst other things. So, Tony, tell everybody why business owners and entrepreneurs are not the same humans.
So many of us are told that we're entrepreneurs when we first start our businesses, but that's just not the case. It took me over 15 years to learn what it meant to become an entrepreneur because, everybody today, especially in college businesses, they say, oh, you're going to be an entrepreneur. Until you get in that dirt, then you realize what it is to be a business owner versus an entrepreneur.
So, if you had to describe or define business owner, and of course, we're going to define entrepreneur in just a minute, what do you think is the difference? What's a business owner?
A business owner, you're in your business every day. Your business is depending on you 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And, you think you have all the answers. You don't trust people and you're having to do everything. You're killing yourself. You're working to death until you start to learn how to trust people. Then you can make that transition.
Yeah. So now, if you say a business owner is someone whose businesses relies on them and they have to be there every day to do it, it's like guy running the sandwich shop, the ice cream parlor, whatever. They're owning the business and they're having to be in it every day. How is that different than being an entrepreneur? What does that mean to you?
Entrepreneurship starts with trust for me, and it's really understanding to have micro failures and macro failures with your people and giving them the opportunity to really, succeed and grow in your company. But trust is where it starts. You cannot scale a business without trust and without employees. And the only way you scale your business with employees is you start to trust them. And micro failures are fine. We want to avoid macro failures in our businesses, but micro failures, you have to allow these people to fail and fail well.
So you're mentioning a couple things I want to clue in on there. So about trust, and then you also talk about micro macro failure. So I want to get to that, but before we do that, I want to put a bow on this. Business owners and entrepreneurs are not the same thing. I believe for a long time that you can be an entrepreneur without owning a business, and you can be a business owner without being an entrepreneur. And it sounds to me like you and I agree on this. And I think that entrepreneurship right now is in vogue. Everybody wants to be an
Sure.
entrepreneur. I remember when I started my company, well, it wasn't my first company, but my first real company in 2010, 2011, I didn't even know what entrepreneur meant. I didn't understand it. I certainly didn't know how to spell the word. I was simply a business owner. And I think it took 3 or 4 years, 5 years maybe, before I was like, whoa, there's something here called entrepreneurship, that if I do different things, that takes me out of business ownership. So you and I think, Tony, are of the same opinion. Business owners and entrepreneurs are different things. And it really comes down to, does your business require you or not? Right.
Sure.
You agree?
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. Like being a business owner is amazing, right? We're such a small, finite group of people being actual business owners. So it's never a bad thing to be a business owner. But the quicker you learn how to become an entrepreneur, that's when you start to get your life back and your dreams. We open a business with this vision like, oh my gosh, we're going to be self employed. We're going to control our schedules. We're going to have all this family time. And we get into business and it's like, oh my gosh. And then, so it's that transition. So I work with a lot of companies to go from a business owner to an entrepreneur. And that's really the piece that, people, the quicker you can learn how to become an entrepreneur, the faster you'll get your life back.
I teach something called the XOS method, and it's based on my experience of exiting without selling a business. Like how do you exit without exiting, which is a book I wrote. And this XOS method really, without specifically calling out the difference between business owners and entrepreneurs, it really talks about this. And I don't know if we've ever talked about this before, but
No,
like the bottom tier of entrepreneurship is owner operators, and
sure.
and 90+% of entrepreneurs stay there as business owners, owner operators. And then the second tier is owner managers. You start paying attention to teams. And then the third tier, which very few ever reach, is owner investor. And that really is where the true entrepreneurs are, is the owner investor. So I think what you and I are talking about, fits quite nicely into the XOS method that I teach my clients. I know you're a business coach as well. Do you have a similar framework with which you kind of help your clients?
Yeah, so I have the business scaling blueprint. It's my book that I wrote, and basically, I go back and I reverse engineer most people's businesses. I take them back to the beginning, in the first days when they started their business, and say, what made it work? Where were you successful in the beginning? And then we start to outline, looking at systems, process, procedures, and how do we develop all of this to get them out of their business? I work with a couple financial guys that do M&A, and one of the biggest things I help them with is taking that business owner and showing them how to systemize their company that they can actually step out of it, because it's one of the biggest problems they have.
Yeah, and not to mention on the M&A side, if you are not the owner operator of the business, your business is going to be worth 30 to 50% more.
Sure.
Everything else the same. And I think people miss that, Tony. It's like, dude, let's say you're doing 8 million a year in revenue and you're there 100% of the time, 50, 60 hours and 8 million a year in revenue. And let's say you have a 20% net. Like, let's
Right.
just go all out, 20% net. Okay, that's good. Lots of people would sign up for that. But if you take the same business, same 8 million, same 20% net, but the owner is not involved in daily operation, your multiple is going to be as much as 50%, maybe 2 or 3 times as high as the other guy.
Oh yeah,
That's
I was saying
crazy.
at least 8 times. You know what I'm saying? If you're owner operator, you're looking at 3, 4 multiple. You're outside the business, you're looking at 8, 9 multiple for sure.
Yeah, so that's that you and I could talk about that. We could geek out on that crap all day long. But I want to go back to this idea of the concept of trust, and then also this micro and macro failure.
Sure.
But to set the stage so that people know who you are, I'm going to tell everybody a little bit about you. You're Tony DeSilvestro. You're a very acclaimed entrepreneur, business consultant. You're an international keynote speaker. You founded over 31 businesses, and you got a team of 450 employees, which does require a lot of trust. And there's a lot of micro failures if you've got that many
Oh yeah.
employees. You've been featured in Forbes. You've been recognized like Entrepreneur of the Year. So you've done a lot of good things as a consultant, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. So this idea of trust, why do you believe that trust is so important?
By coaching so many people and entrepreneurs, that's the number one thing that they have the problem with. If I say anything, it's like I'm just going to do it myself. It's way easier. You hear so many mid-level managers say that. That's the common thing that they'll say. It's just so much easier for me to just do it. I can do it so much faster, and they don't invest in their people. And the problem is, if you don't start trusting your people, and when I say investing in your people, it's taking the time to show them the processes, really delegate properly. And delegation is one of the biggest mistakes people make. It sounds like an easy thing to do, but they constantly screw it up. And delegation involves trust, right? I have to pick you as a person. I have to trust you first, but it's my job as a manager to set the proper expectation. And when I do the follow through on delegation and you screw it up, I've got to go back and say, I messed up. I didn't set the right expectation. I didn't pick the right person. So I have to automatically trust you when I'm giving you a task. But most mid-level managers can't even cross over from there. All they want to do is criticize their employees. So when I talk about investing in your people, that's taking time to invest in them. And most business owners, not entrepreneurs, don't take that time. They're so afraid of their baby. We start a company, we have an infant, and we're afraid to let anybody affect that. So we just end up doing it all ourselves. And that's where trust really comes into play here. It's really trusting your people to grow and scale. I said it earlier, you cannot scale and grow your business until you start using your employees and trusting them every day, because we scale through our people.
So a mentor of mine taught me something called the law of hindrance. And it's a universal law that applies to everyone. If there's and what hinders you from success, that's what the law of hindrance talks about. And it states this, that if you're ever not experiencing success in anything, any aspect of life, whether it's health, finances, relationships, business, it comes down to one of two things or both: lack of trust or lack of discipline.
Yeah.
And so I think you've hit it on the head. It's like if we're not experiencing success as an entrepreneur, if we're stuck in the business ownership trap, it's one of those two things. Certainly lack of trust, but also probably lack of discipline. Because do we trust ourselves? Do we trust our employees? Do we discipline ourselves to train our employees the right way? Do we discipline ourselves not to step in when Bob messes it up? Because Bob's
Sure.
going to mess it up. Bob's going to screw up. What do you say to people who say, "Well, I can't trust Bob. Bob's good, but like he can't do it as good as me." What do you tell people?
I tell people constantly, what I do is I always reverse engineer right there. I go right back to the systems and I show them, let me look at your training protocols. Because when I talk about investing in your employees, I haven't hired an employee in my entire life. Over 30 years in business, I don't hire anybody. I invest in every one of them. And what that means when I tell an entrepreneur or a business owner, you need to invest in your people, I go right to their training manuals and say, these people are failing at their jobs because you have not defined the process and your expectations that you're expecting them to do. So when they mess up, you're never going to trust anybody. So take the time, go back into your businesses, redefine your training manuals, make sure your systems can be executed at the highest level to get at obviously the return on investment that we're looking for. These are the pieces that we really need to work on, and the trust will come. And as you start to trust people, you'll start to trust more. But really define your systems, process, and procedures, and your training. I mean, I have a separate company that I developed just in training alone, because I was hyper frustrated. Almost every company I know, you say I've founded over 33 companies, but they're all built out of frustration. They're all built because I was like, man, I can't find a product good enough to do this, or a marketing company. So I started all these companies for that reason. But really, the training company has probably been the most valuable company I've ever done, because it really showed me a path on how to be able to evaluate employees, take them to the next level, and create upward mobility through your people. And as soon as I started creating upward mobility, my sales and my growth started to happen.
So you talk about micro and macro failure. And of course, we all know micro is on a small scale, macro is on a large scale. Give us an explanation or example of letting micro failures and embracing micro failures to avoid macro failures.
Right. So I'll take it to my construction industry, right? So a guy throws a bunch of stuff on the ground, man. At the end of the day, they're framing them and they got boards with nails in them. If that guy doesn't clean up those products, and I say, hey man, clean up the project at the end of the day, making sure we're good. All of a sudden the owner walks in the next day, he doesn't clean up. The owner trips, falls down on the project. We just had a macro failure instead of a micro failure. If the guy doesn't clean up, if he cleans up properly and there's a little bit left, it's okay. But the thing that I want you to, they need to understand, people need to understand, if you don't allow your employees to have micro failures, they will never grow. We want to all avoid, as business leaders, we want to avoid macro failures, right? That's our job. If employees are having macro failures, then we obviously haven't set our processes up properly. But micro failures is how you grow. Every entrepreneur you talk to and every business leader we talk to, say the number one thing, say, what has made you successful? Every one of us will tell you that it's the failures that have made us who we are. The failures make us great. It's not our success, it's the failures that make us great. But the thing is, the funny part is, as business owners and leaders, we're not allowing our employees to fail. We're not allowing that. But once you understand what it means to allow them to have micro failures, and how you respond after they fail is the critical piece.
Let's take a quick break to thank our amazing sponsors for making this podcast possible.
I finally got it. It's the brand new Relay credit card. So check it out. I'm gonna do a little unboxing for you so you can check this out. So here we go. Nice little case, kind of like the American Express. You know, they're not playing. They're doing it right. Oh, look at this. There's a quote right inside that says, "Success is having to worry about every damn thing in the world except money." Johnny Cash. That's pretty good. I've not heard that one. Oh, this is nice. A little thing on the back, up to 1.5% cash back, no annual fees or interest, 30-day billing cycle. And there it is. It's the Relay credit card. It's a Visa. So I'm not going to show you my number, but there it is. Look at that. Boom. Go to therealjasonduncan.com/relay.
Thanks for listening to our sponsors. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, I think we've got to trust the process as much as we trust the employee himself, because if Bob comes in and he tries something and he doesn't have the opportunity to fail, to your point, Bob's never going to push through that. We can't get stronger if somebody else is lifting our weights for us. We have to push through the pain of those failures, and we learn way more by failing than we do succeeding. And I think you've hit the point. So micro failure, we have to embrace that. My belief is that when Bob or whomever I've delegated to can do that task at about 80% of my expectation, there's still 20% of micro failures that are happening. I'm good. Like Bob, because if I can get 10 Bobs to do it at 80%, that's 800%. If you know what, and I'm not having to do any of that. Now, even though I could do one or two of those things at 100%. I can't do 8 things. I can do 10 things at 100%. What do you think about that?
I love it, man. We're very similar. So I teach a whole thing on delegation. I'm like, I ask you, Jason, can you do 1,000% every day? And every person that looks at them like, hell no, I can only do 100% every day. But when you learn how to delegate, I'm going to give 90% to 10 people. That's 900% right there. All of a sudden I'm getting 900% done. So I take that 10%, man. I find out the person, man, you're doing 1,000% every day, Jason. So it's really that the same philosophy is like, when we delegate properly and we take that opportunity to allow people to fail, we have to create champions. If you don't let people fail, and when they fail, they get the opportunity to go back and correct the situation, like you're saying, and then you praise them, they're like, hey, what can I do next? How can I do that again, man? You like, thank you so much for giving me that opportunity. Because I'm telling you, criticizing your employees is probably the biggest mistake young business owners make every time. They constantly, and I was there, Jason, I was that guy. It took me 15 years to become an entrepreneur, to really understand how to look at my employees a different way and the approach. I grew up in Jersey, and it was black and white. There was you never could ask your employer why or ask a question. Heck, it would not go well.
You just do it, man.
You just
if I say jump, you say ha. Don't ask me questions.
Yeah, exactly. Today's different though. Millennials changed all that.
Yeah, they did. Well, so you've started over 30 something companies. Tell everybody a little bit about what was your first one. What are you doing today? Give us a little sense of that background.
I started out in Jersey Shore as a kid. At 8 years old, I found an opportunity. I saw people coming off the beach, and I said, heck, I'm going to go to a wholesale candy store, buy a bunch of candy bars, bubble gum, selling it on 8 years old. I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. Then all of a sudden, the first couple of days, I'm like, man, the Snicker bars are melting. I'm like, I had to make my first capital investment. I went and bought a cooler, some ice. Shit, I started selling more candy bars than ever, say, because they were frozen. But, then the real business I started, I was a partner in a restaurant at 19 years old. And then at 23, I opened up a full-scale Italian restaurant. And then that turned into a franchise and went into multiple companies at that. But the biggest thing, when you say to somebody, hey, I founded over 33 companies, they're like, you're crazy. There's no way. But what people don't understand is I'm only in one business. Every business I've ever operated, I'm operating 12 different companies right now, and I only operate one. I operate the people business. That's the business I'm in, but that takes a long time to transform into that. But when you understand that human capital is the most valuable asset that I have, I'm in one business. I have processes and procedures in every single business I have, but without people, I can't run any of them. And as long as you understand process and procedure and human beings and what we need, then you can do any business. You can run any business.
Yeah, I think people, schools, whatever, are not teaching the skills of leadership that entrepreneurs and business owners need in order to scale businesses. Because as you said, we are in the people development business. We have to develop people, or we're going to be forever stuck in the business owner. We're going to be the shop owner. We're going to be doing it all ourselves. And by the way, if you out there, listener, like running the sandwich shop and you don't like that's your job and you want to do that until you retire, listen, more power to you. Don't let us stand in your way. But if you are trying to convince or fooling yourself that you're an entrepreneur and you've got this business and it's going to make you millions of dollars, like you can't do that working in the shop every day. You've got to figure out how to develop people. I don't know why colleges and universities, high schools don't do more leadership training and understanding the psychology of managing people, because it is so important. The only guess I could have is that if we teach everybody how to do that, we're going to have fewer and fewer employees to run the system, to pay the taxes. Right.
And I mean, in AI, you look at AI today, and it's definitely changing the world. But like, I speak a lot at universities, and I go into entrepreneurial business classes, and the professors, they're amazing. But when you have that real life experience, I've been in the dirt for over 31 years. So, I mean, it's different, right? So I've had so many opportunities, but the thing that the teachers, they all have is they have the ability to role play in a classroom and really put them through scenarios that, can show them what it's like to be in real life. And I have a problem with schools too. Like when you get an 80 in school on a paper, like what happens to the other 20%? You don't even learn it. It's gone. But in the workforce today, if you have an employee that's doing 80%, sometimes it's a little difficult. They don't end up having their job. So like really, I'm very focused on taking employees and giving them upper mobility and taking them through that process, learn that other 20%, and then give them an opportunity to maybe shift a position or work a different place in the company and make a difference. But, entrepreneurship is definitely, that term is definitely used too very lightly in the colleges, and needs to be explained more thorough.
I could think about, like, let's go to college and you and I, let's go enroll together, and we want to be surgeons. We're going to be brain surgeons. And the guy teaching class has never even like held a scalpel. He's never studied anything. Why would we even take that class? But people line up every day and they'll pay $150,000 for an education in entrepreneurship or business or an MBA from professors who've never ever started anything in their lives. And I don't understand why we keep doing that. Why is that happening? One of the employees I used to have at one of my other companies had a degree in entrepreneurship, and he was the least entrepreneurial out of everybody on my team. And yet he was the one that always wanted equity. He wanted equity in the company because he understood it. He knew, hey, equity is the thing. I got to have it. Like, no, dude, you don't even know how to do this, man. You don't have the gut instinct. You just read it in a book. So
I have a funny story real quick, Jason. I was sitting with a general in the service, the military, and he goes to me, I trained the best entrepreneurs in the world in the Navy. And I'm like, really? I said, they're all entrepreneurs. When they come out, they're going to be the best entrepreneur. I said, let me ask you a question. I said, I'm going to come in the service. I'm joining tomorrow. I'm going to fly F-18s, and I want to be flying an F-18 within 4 months. And he goes, oh, son, he goes, that'll take you over 2 years of training. I said, then stop telling these people they're entrepreneurs and tell them to be dishwashers and tell them to get in a restaurant or go sweep a floor on a construction site. Then they can learn how to become an entrepreneur. But that's the same philosophy, man. You brought that right back to my heart, man. That was 10 years ago.
Well, so you're talking about micro failures and macro failures. You've got 450 plus employees, 30 some odd businesses that you've started. What's the biggest macro failure you've had in business? What happened?
Trust. That's the most interesting thing. I put a couple people in the business with me, and I thought they were great people. I was emotional, and they have 4 kids, and great guy, probably one of the best bakers I ever met in my life. Started in complete manufacturing business, delivered bread in 2 different states and pastries, and the guy ended up doing drugs and doing all this stuff. But I had this huge heart for this guy because I didn't care, but it was trust. I didn't really look at that employee and vet him properly. And, sometimes in business, and being emotional sometimes causes you your biggest problems. And I'm not saying like even today, I'm still a very emotional, passionate person, but I definitely take a step back, man. Before I take an adventure and I do something, I make sure I look at it hard. Like before I opened my first restaurant, I worked in 25 different restaurants. I ended up with a lot of experience. And it's like you said, if to be a surgeon, go work in the hospital, go do that. Before you go into business and you're going to take that opportunity, man, go talk to 10 businesses that are doing the same exact thing. Ask them about their failures. Ask them about where their macro failures were before you get in. Don't ask them about their success. Every entrepreneur is going to tell you they're successful because it's the loneliest profession in the world. We never want to tell anybody what's bad. We always want to tell them everything's great, but really say, listen, I don't want to hear the good stuff. Tell me the worst part about this business before you jump in.
Let's take a quick break to thank our amazing sponsors for making this podcast possible.
As an entrepreneur running multiple businesses, effective communication is critical for me. I've tried all kinds of outreach tools over the years, but none have compared to Dubb when it comes to driving real results, and that's DUBB. I was one of Dubb's first users. I think it was like 7 years ago when they first launched, and I've been a loyal customer ever since. Dubb has completely transformed my prospecting, my client communication strategy, and here's why. Dubb makes it simple to record personal video messages and share them across email, SMS, social media, and more. And this brings back the face-to-face connection that's missing from most digital outreach. And what happens is my prospects instantly feel more engaged when they can put my face to my name. I end up building a stronger relationship faster by incorporating these video messaging into my workflow. Dubb also provides tracking and analytics so I can see exactly who engages with my videos and how they respond to them. Their automation and their CRM features help me nurture leads and close more deals. I mean, that's what we're trying to do, right, as entrepreneurs. So after you're using Dove for years, I absolutely can't recommend them enough. I mean, Ruben, those guys over there are phenomenal. I love Darius. They're all great guys. It's become an invaluable tool that I depend upon to run my businesses efficiently. And if you want to boost your outreach and see amazing results like I have, head over to therealjasonduncan.com/dub. That's DUBB, and you can try it completely for free. No credit card required. You get the first 50. You get 50% off your first 2 months, by the way, if you use my link. You need to take your prospecting to the next level with video messaging from Dub. They're my go-to sales communication platform for nearly 7 years and counting. Go to therealjasonduncan.com/dub. Try it for free, no credit card required, and you'll get 50% off your first 2 months as well.
Thanks for listening to our sponsors. Now, back to the show.
It's interesting when I have opportunities to chat with other entrepreneurs and we let our guard down a little bit. We come clean.
Right.
We come clean with all the stupid decisions that we made, the over trusting, the under trusting, the lack of discipline, the micro and the macro failures, to put it in your language. And it is through those conversations that I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I learn a lot through those conversations. And
Sure.
and I think we need to embrace that. I had a guest on my show recently and we were talking about the fact he had a business deal go south, and it was like a high 9-figure loss.
Right.
And like is bad, like real bad. And he says, dude, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be who I am today.
100%.
But in the middle of that, if you don't document it, you're not going to remember what that was like. And so he actually documented it, and he wrote a book about it in the middle of going through it. Has there been a moment of you in yours where you had enough cognizance where you understood, hey, something's going bad and I need to document that. I need to write this down or record it, or did anything like that ever happen to you? And if not, is there a moment where you wished you would have done that?
Like, I have this. My wife says, "Man, the lost dog always finds me." You know what I mean? Because I have this huge heart, and like I don't know, they just find me. And documenting it, writing my book. People always ask me. It took me over a year and a half to write my book, but it really took me 40 years to write my book. It was 40 years of business and stuff like that. So writing my book was probably me documenting so much of it, and it was such an amazing experience for me because, like, just looking at every detail of my life and really understanding why I am the person I am today. Because people always ask you, like, man, how are you so successful? What did you do? And when I wrote my book, I really dove deep into like my entire history of my life. So it's kind of fun. My book is a textbook though. It teaches chapter by chapter. Like if you're struggling a certain aspect of business, man, it just goes right into that. But I've had people like, trusting people, and they've stole a lot of money from me. And so I've been there. I've been all over that. So
now you wrote a book. It's called The Business Scaling Blueprint. What does the word scale mean? So many people talk about this and they throw it around like entrepreneur. They throw around that word. What does scaling mean?
scaling to me is not your traditional thought of scaling. Scaling to me is that guy that owns a business, but he wants to grow, in his family. So it's great to have that job. But if having your time with your family or your children, how can you scale to get that time? So scaling means something different to every single person. I have 2 ladies I'm coaching in Manhattan right now, and like they have 2 amazing spas. We talked about franchise, and like, we don't want a franchise. We just want our time. I'm like, well, let me help you scale. Let me help you scale your business to get your time back, to get your life back. They're 59 years old. They're tired, but they love their business. So when I say scaling, but if you came to me, Jason, you said, hey, I want to go to $100 million. No problem, brother. Let's get it. It depends. So a lot of times when coaches that have never owned a business and don't understand that, and you say that word scaling, all they can think of is scaling. Man, I know what it is to scale. And just because you're doing 200 million a year doesn't mean you're happy. Doesn't mean you have everything you want in your life. So that's not what scaling is to me. Scaling is creating a blueprint for your purpose in life. And if that means grow your business or grow your family or grow your children's lives, then that's scaling.
All right. I love that. So what do you think has been the key to your success? How have you been able to unlock success in your life?
Well, first off, my wife and my 3 daughters are my powerhouse in my life, man. I would not be the man I am today without my kids and my wife. But it's really just having empathy and listening and having respect for people and trying to do the right thing every single day of my life. I'm not one of those people. I don't do a lot for myself, which is probably my biggest weakness. And I need to work on that as I'm getting older. But I just have always put other people before me and just always tried to make sure everybody's doing a great job and everybody's successful and putting food on their table.
So how do you define success? What does that mean to Tony?
I'm like that crazy serial entrepreneur, man. I get up every day, man. I just want to have a great day every day, and I want to keep moving that ball. I keep pushing that ball up the hill. So if I have a good day and I'm pushing that ball up the hill, then that's a successful day for me. And empowering people around me is really probably the most important thing to me. If I can change somebody's life, and I think that's what I love about coaching and teaching and speaking all over the world is when I get off that stage, man, these people are like, oh my God, you just changed my life. And that's really what is success for me, is really making a difference in other people's lives.
So by that definition, do you consider yourself to be successful?
100%. I mean, I wouldn't change a day. I don't regret a day of my life. You know what I mean? I've had a lot of failures and a lot of success, and man, I wouldn't change a thing, because I truly wouldn't be like that other entrepreneur you talked about. I wouldn't be the man I am today if I didn't have those. And I could lose everything tomorrow, Jason, and I'll build it again the next day. I don't care. I don't focus on that. I focus on tomorrow. I lean forward every day. I tease people and say, I don't have a rear view mirror in my car. I never look backwards. I'm always going forward. And how can we make it better and keep running?
So I want to give you the opportunity to have the last word on the show today. So as we look at your life and your experience and your success, what advice would you give to the listeners as entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, growing entrepreneurs, scaling entrepreneurs? What would you say is the best piece of advice that Tony DeSilvestro could give to the listener today?
My biggest thing, if you want to be a business leader or an entrepreneur, love what you do. Love what you do every day. And if that means working 100 hours a week, do it. If you want to spend more time with your family and your kids, do it. But love every moment. Love every minute of the day. Because you know what? We're only here on a very short time in life. If you want to go to Greece right now and see they've been there 5,000 years, every 4 walls of a business over there, you don't remember any of those entrepreneurs. So make every minute of your day valuable. Make everything that you do have a purpose for a greater being in your life.
All right. He's Tony DeSilvestro. You can look him up at TonyDeSilvestro.com. He's on Instagram at Tony D Talks. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see his step and repeat behind him on the wall. Tony D Talks. Go check him out on Instagram. Tony, thank you so much for being on the show. You and I have a lot in common in how we help our clients. I really appreciate your sharing your wisdom today and some of your stories. So thank you and congratulations on all your success.
Thank you, Jason. It's truly been a pleasure, man. I can't wait to come to Nashville and see you. So.
Yeah, man. Come on anytime. Well, there you have it. Another successful entrepreneur sharing his journey to success and talking about this idea of trust and micro and macro failures and the difference between business ownership and entrepreneurship. There's a lot to unpack in this episode. Half an hour, man, you can go back and listen to this a couple of times. Listen to it on your way to work. Listen to it on your way home. Understand what's happening. And if you want to reach out to Tony, go to Tony D Talks on Instagram. That's Tony D Talks on Instagram. Check him out. Let him know that you heard him here on the root of all success. Thank you again for watching, for tuning in, for listening, for leaving reviews, all that stuff that you hear us say. Please subscribe, leave a review. We don't do that for vanity, although it's nice to have it. But the reality is we get in front of more people as a podcast if you leave reviews, if you leave comments, if you do those things. So please take the opportunity to do that if you can today. Until next time, I am the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King.
Attention business owners.
Attention business owners.
Feeling burnout from running your business? Uncertain if you're nearing burnout? Take our free 10-question business burnout test at businessburnouttest.com to discover where you stand. With just 10 quick questions, you'll learn how to immediately begin making changes to regain freedom and success. Cut your daily operations time in half. Improve your quality of life and prepare your business for your future exit without losing revenue or profit. Visit businessburnouttest.com now and take the test. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.